dive into the topic of personal branding, I have my first question to you. What's your story? How did it all start and how did it bring you to 115 countries?
You know what? I started traveling. It was really a labor of love. It was something that I love to do. I grew up in Canada, but I had the chance to go to university in France. And that really opened up my eyes to international travel. And so when I returned home to Canada after university, I tried to figure out ways that I could go abroad again and live in Europe. And I discovered that I could teach overseas. And so that started a 10-year career teaching overseas in many different countries. I taught in England, I taught in France, I taught in Mexico, and I taught in Hong Kong. And while I was doing that, you have to realize that I was teaching purely so that I could live overseas and travel. And my passion really lied in storytelling. I always wanted to be a journalist. I didn't end up going to school for that. I ended up going to school for education and teaching. But I started a travel blog back in 2005. And this was a time when monetizing your blog just wasn't a thing. In fact, when people first started monetizing way back, what they were doing was they were getting text links. So companies were paying for text links on blogs, or people were making money through Google AdSense. There wasn't really a big way, I guess, to monetize your travel blog. So I was just doing it for fun. And then by 2016, I was getting a lot of different assignments. I was getting attention from a lot of different outlets, and I started getting paid for my travel writing and my travel photography. And around that time as well, influencer marketing became a thing, and Instagram started growing, and being an influencer became a thing. And that was where I really hit my stride, and I was able to start making a full-time income. So I left my teaching job and I went full-time into travel blogging and being a travel influencer, travel journalist, and host. And here I am today, 4 years later, over 4 years later.
I love the story. I feel a little bit jealous, of course, but that's a wonderful journey. And oh my God, you're the right person to ask my questions. So slightly turning to the topic of personal branding. So you said that in 2005, right? That's when you started the blog.
Yes.
Monetizing blogs wasn't a thing, and now it absolutely is. And so specifically talking of publications, and I mentioned many, wonderful journals and magazines and newspapers where you were, published. How has that affected your blog in terms of readership and earnings?
Oh, I mean, I think that PR is a wonderful thing. You could be the best writer in the world, you could be the best blogger, but if people don't know that you exist, if people don't know how to find you, then unfortunately you will not be able to build your personal brand. So I've found that PR, publicity, has been really integral to my growth as a travel personality in this space, and it's really helped me to develop my personal brand. So in the beginning, again, I was just doing this for fun. I wasn't really conscious of the power of publicity, but I did back in the day, like circa 2011, I had a couple of posts go viral, and that really helped me get attention. And as a result, certain publications and brands were attracted to me because they saw my name, like they became aware of me. So I really think that, especially today and in today's climate, the power of publicity is one that is very strong, and one that is very important to anyone who is trying to monetize their personal brand.
Thank you. And so back then in 2011, where you were, noticed for the first time by some big brands, what was your strategy then? How did you gain your first sponsors? And so I have a long question, I'm going to read several. So how would you start it now in 2020? And I'm asking because it's always scary to start with a zero public capital.
Yes.
And especially in 2020.
Yeah, absolutely. So what you have to realize is that when I started out, I mean, I started with very different intentions, and I started in a very different time. Social media wasn't as prolific as it is now. back in 2009, Facebook was kind of a thing. It wasn't as popular as it is today. And I don't believe Instagram really existed. Twitter was around, but it wasn't something that people could really monetize. And you weren't seeing as many personalities on there necessarily. And influencers didn't really exist, and at least not by that name. So I would recommend for somebody starting out today to leverage social media. TikTok is huge. I am not on TikTok. I feel as though I juggle a lot, so I haven't really exploited TikTok, but I think that it's probably one of the most powerful social media tools right now, just because if you create content, it can go viral way easier, I think, than on Instagram. I think Instagram restricts posts and restricts reach in a way that TikTok has not done yet. So I think that if you are really starting out and you're really wanting to attract attention, most definitely get yourself onto TikTok, start creating content alongside your own personal sites. I always recommend that somebody has their own personal website, whether it's a blog or a website that's a sort of portfolio. It's really important for you to own your own domain and to have a space that is not, subject to reach or subject to being taken down or what have you. I mean, if you have your own website, you own your own content. So I always recommend that, but then use and leverage social media in order to draw people to your own operated sites. So yeah, TikTok I think is really important, even though I'm not on it. Instagram is Instagram is my biggest revenue and income driver these days. And I make most of my money through brand partnerships. And a lot of people will laugh and say, oh, you're an Instagram influencer, so on and so forth. But I get a six-figure annual income from Instagram brand partnerships alone. And that wouldn't be possible if I didn't have a strong personal brand in place. So that's something that I always recommend people to do. A lot of people, are uncomfortable with the term influencer, but there is a lot of money in influencer marketing. And it's a wonderful way to put yourself out there to garner an income and to gain an audience. So leverage social media. I think that is really the biggest takeaway.
Wow, that's a great piece of advice. But I have the next question, which is pretty curious and a little bit contradictory. So a little bit of information about that question first. We've got very opposite views from our speakers' opinion. So some of them develop their branding, their personal branding, and some of them develop their company branding. And sometimes these are probably just the same people behind just different names. So one person develops their image as a travel blogger, and another person does not develop any personal image, just a company name. So what is your opinion? Is it so necessary to build a personal brand in 2020, or it is sometimes enough to put more effort into creating the best content first?
Right. I think it really depends on what it is you're trying to market, and it depends on what your end goals are. I don't have a product as such. I am the product. So for me, personal branding is very important because first and foremost, I am a creative. I'm a content creator. I am a media personality. I get hired for influencer marketing, where me and my image and my personality and my thoughts are at the forefront. I get hired for broadcast jobs, TV hosting jobs, where again, I am the product. And so personal branding is very important to me because when people are coming to me, they want Onika Raymond. Now, if I were marketing luggage or something, like Away luggage, very popular brand, then perhaps Onika Raymond would not be as important because people are coming to me or finding me because they are more interested in my luggage than what I'm doing, what I'm saying, what information I have to give to them. So I think it depends on what your business strategy is, what your business model is, what your revenue strategies are. And so, I mean, I don't think that they are mutually exclusive.
Mhm.
I absolutely think that you can have a product or a company, and then you can separately be a face of that company. You know, like Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook, for instance.
Absolutely, yeah. Great
Um,
example.
but at the same time, it really just depends. Now, I know that talking about the travel blogger space, there were a number of travel bloggers that I started out with, and they primarily developed their content, and it was their income, or the business model was that they were going to make revenue through display ads, through affiliate links, and so on and so forth, and not necessarily through brand partnerships or brand deals or influencer marketing. Now, Google had its update and massively devalued a lot of these travel bloggers, and their SEO value decreased. So already they had taken a major hit with regards to income. And then COVID-19 happened, and all of that search engines, you know, those related keywords, those keywords related to
Exactly.
travel, nobody was searching those anymore. So, you know, I was finding that a lot of the travel blogging colleagues that I started out with, who did not run travel, or who did not run, I guess, personality blogs, and who were not really into the, you know, TikTok, Instagram, influencer marketing space, some of them lost 90% of their income, because they did not develop a personal brand, and because they were entirely reliant on search and SEO and Google, which didn't favor them. While myself, on the other hand, yes, I took a hit in income the first half of the year, but things have really picked up in the second half, especially as in-person events are starting again, especially as production, you know, I work in broadcasting, has started up again, and influencer marketing spend or advertising spend on branded content campaigns is on an upswing again. So I haven't really been affected by that. So again, I think it depends on what your revenue and your business models are.
Well, that sounds awesome. I mean, personal branding as a survival strategy for the COVID time sounds just
Yeah.
awesome. And it's definitely possible to, you know, develop it at least a little bit right now. And
Absolutely.
so
Now's the
you
best
mentioned,
time. Now's the best
yeah.
time.
And you know
Yeah.
what I really love about it is that probably if you develop a website that is devoted to some certain niche or content type or topic, then you're not so easy to switch. You know, you're in some type of a crisis.
Yeah.
So, and when you are a person, you definitely have lots of interests and, you know, activities you do
Exactly.
and platforms with, you know, where you have a presence. And that's so much, you know, smart.
And that's
Smarter than,
absolutely it. I mean, because I haven't been able to travel as much this year, and because
yeah.
nobody has been, or people have not been as interested in travel content this year, I've really pivoted towards doing more lifestyle content. And I'm a new mom. I had a baby at the beginning of the year, and I've been really
Congratulations.
engrossed in that. And so I've found a new audience of new moms like myself, or moms who have been in the game for a while, who are interested in some of my thoughts and perspectives on motherhood. And so that shift was really easy for me to make. And that shift was really easy for my audience to accept, because they're following me, they're following Onika, and Onika travels, but Onika does a variety of other things as well. So that has been, I think, very helpful in terms of weathering the storm, or the drought rather, when it comes to work, particularly in the travel industry this year.
Well, Nika, first of all, congratulations.
Yeah.
So the next thing is that we started already, you know, to build that list of ways to develop a brand, like
Mhm.
social media. What else can our listeners do, you know, to start building their personal brand now? What are some other ways to do it?
Well, I mean, I will always, you know, praise social media. I think that's one of the best ways to get your name out there, to get your work out there, especially in a time where COVID is limiting the social interactions that we can have in person. So I think that now is really the time to leverage all of your online platforms, whether it's via social media or something like LinkedIn or through a personal website, for instance. But sometimes, you know what, the old school methods are best. You know, word of mouth as transmitted by friends and families. Those friends and family members, I mean, those will be your first fans, and often
Right.
they will be your most diehard fans. They will be your most engaged fans because they know you and they want you to do well. So you can leverage, you know, their social networks, and not necessarily social media networks, but just their social circles, and you know, really have people who are invested in you as a person, right? As you build your personal brand, they are invested in you as a person and they want you to do well. So they will endorse you to other people in their social networks and social media networks. So I think that's really important as well. And that's something that I feel in 2020, because we're all glued to our screens and so on and so forth. I think that's something that we've forgotten. If you're creating a personal brand, at the end of the day, it's all about relationships. And people with really strong personal brands and people who will do well in the industry, and who will end up generating the most revenue, are people who are actually relatable for the most part. And that relatability is built through relationships. So one of the things that I've started doing that I neglected to do, I have all these beautiful business cards, and I often forget to pass them out. But the reality is that even now, even during COVID times, I actually come across a lot of people. You know, I meet a lot of people in the street or when I'm traveling or when I'm out to dinner. And so I've started passing out my business cards. Business cards, they have my name, they have my website, they have my social media platforms. And so that's a way to make a connection with someone and a lasting impression, so to speak. Because if you give them a business card, you know, maybe they'll check it and throw it away, but maybe they'll take the time to Google you or to, you know, hit you up on your website or your social media. And that's a relationship that's been built because you've actually met that person in person. So it's kind of a warm lead, so to speak.
Well, it is. And well, we actually have a question that relates to that topic of building contacts and relationships from the chat. Is, well, when the lead is not that warm, how do you approach brands for collaborations?
Oh yeah, that's a fantastic question. That's a fantastic question. So how do you pitch brands is essentially the question. So one of the things that you have to do, you need to make sure that you have a media kit first and foremost. And a media kit is going to basically be your resume or your digital portfolio that outlines who you are, what you do, you know, who your audience is, what your niche is. And you present that, you know, nice digital form, and then you cold call or cold email leads or contacts that you may have found in your searches online. Now, back in the day, I used to find a lot of contacts on LinkedIn, on Twitter, and I used to cold email them. Luckily, at this point, I actually have a manager now who handles a lot of that communication for me. So that has taken a lot off my plate. But you know what, if you don't put the work into it, like, nothing is going to fall into your lap. Let's put it that way. So I think it's really important for you, if you are trying to build your brand, and if you don't necessarily have the funds to hire someone to be your PR and to do all of that outreach, then you got to just put the elbow grease into it and get to the nitty gritty and just do it. So that you can put yourself out there. But yeah, I mean, finding contacts online. Luckily, we live in a digital age where everybody is contactable, everybody is findable. And if you do contact someone who is not necessarily the correct contact, but you ask them if they're able to forward you or point you in the direction of who is going to be the correct contact.
Well, that's right. And at the same time, you know, well, you are easily discoverable now. It's easy to talk to you. It's easy to find you. It's easy to, you know, approach you with with some content, with some contract, with some idea. But you know, it took probably a lot of time to grow your
Sure.
readership and, you know, this overall traffic and just let's call it readers, you know.
Yeah.
And probably you have some recommendations on how to attract traffic or readers when you're
Yes,
just
sure.
building a personal brand.
Yes. So building a personal brand, my number one tip is to be prolific. I can't tell you the number of people who contact me and they say, oh, Anika, I want to be an influencer, or I want to be on TV, or I want to be a top blogger. But then I go to their profiles or I go to their website and they haven't created any content. You
How
have
do you
to
know?
create content, and you have to create content consistently in order to build an audience and in a, you know, in order to build that personal brand. Nobody's going to follow you if you have one post. You need to be constantly in their face and in their ears, even to the point of being annoying. It's very, very imperative, very important that you are prolific, which means that you are consistently and constantly creating content. Second thing is that you want to create content that draws people in, content that is relevant. So whether it is timely content, for example, I live in the United States, the presidential elections are going on. So
Oh, yes.
chances are, if you're creating content around something or an issue or a topic that is happening in the now, that is current, that is relevant, that people get emotional about, well, they are going to read, look, listen, and share whatever it is you have to say, or whatever it is that you create. So it's really important to understand what your audience wants or your prospective audience needs, and to create that content. Number three, find content or find topics that you yourself are passionate about and have a big knowledge or a larger or strong knowledge base about. Travel is my thing. You know, I've been traveling since I was a kid. It's something that I'm very passionate about. I love photography. So in terms of telling travel stories, that's kind of my thing. I'm passionate about it, and I think it shows when I create content around it. Now, something like cooking, you know, food blogs and food content is really popular, but I don't have a passion for that at all. And I don't have any expertise in it either. So there's no USP, there's no unique selling point for me there. And therefore I just stay in my lane and I do the travel and lifestyle thing. As well, I think you asked about strategies. I would say devise different platforms, or devise different platforms from which you can derive. Oops, that's my child crying in the background. Mom life. But make sure that you have different income streams and different revenue streams. So don't only rely on one platform, because you know what? They're really finicky. And if you rely on Instagram and then the algorithm has a change and all of a sudden, you know, your likes and your engagement drops and that was your only one revenue stream, well, then you're kind of up a creek without a paddle. So it is very, very important that you do have multiple income streams. And in order to do that, you're going to have to be on different platforms.
Right. Thank you so much for such a great answer. And probably we can, you know, start wrapping it up. And I'm going to ask one personal thing.
Sure.
So I'm just curious, really. Now, when you're really well known in the industry, do you still work on, you know, maintaining your image as a blogger, or you feel that the competition is growing and you have to work harder than before?
You know what? I think it really depends. I think that anyone who is invested and passionate in what they do, you know, you're going to continue to work at it. And for myself, I still love what I'm doing. I have absolutely evolved from what I'm doing. You know, it's so funny when people call me a blogger, because I'm like, I actually don't blog that often anymore, because I've evolved. So there are other interests that I have, and I create content in other ways and in different places and in spaces and platforms that aren't necessarily my own. I'm a TV host, as you mentioned at the beginning of this, and I report and I host for NBC here in New York. So a lot of the things I'm doing actually don't show up on any of my owned and operated platforms at all. You know, they appear on Channel 4 here in New York City, and they live on, NBC websites and things like that. So, I think that any person who is creative, any person who is branding themselves or has a personal brand, that brand is going to grow and evolve and change, because as a person, you are growing and evolving and changing. And I think that as soon as you become really blasé, or you're not passionate about what you're doing, then you're not going to grow anymore, and you're not going to be very successful at what you are doing. So take that temperature check, and check in with yourself and reevaluate what it is you want, and what it is you have, and where it is you want to be in 1 year, in 2 years, in 5 years, in 10 years. And I think that will really guide some of the processes and procedures that you need to engage in order to get to those places.
Thank you so much. Oh my God, it's been such a pleasure talking to you. So
Thank
interesting.
you
I
so much
learned
for
a
having me.
lot, really. Thank you so much. And thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much. This was wonderful.